Daniel had been to many worlds, but nothing compared to the city of Illyria. The alien capital rose high above the glowing seas, built from silver towers that seemed to touch the sky. At night, the towers caught the light of two moons, giving the city a soft, dreamlike shine. Daniel often felt like a visitor in a painting, walking among colors that belonged to another world. He was not a soldier. He was not even the most skilled diplomat Earth had. Yet somehow he had been chosen to represent humanity in front of the Galactic Council. The council was made up of 20 alien races, each with their own customs, rules, and voices. Some were small and insect-like, others tall and winged, and some looked almost human. But among all of them, there was one who drew his eyes again and again. Her name was Lyra. She was from the Veyari, a race known for their discipline and grace. The Veyari were tall, with luminous eyes that shifted shades of silver and blue depending on the light. Their skin was smooth, their movements exact, and their speech always measured. To the galaxy, they were a people of perfection, cold, logical, and untouchable. To Daniel, Lyra was different. Every time she entered the council chamber, she carried an aura that silenced the room. Her people's robes shimmered like woven starlight, and her voice was steady as stone. Yet Daniel saw more. He noticed the way her gaze lingered on questions, the way her expression softened for a moment when she thought no one was watching. Where others saw perfection, Daniel saw hints of something hidden, something human. The council had gathered that evening to discuss Earth's place among the stars. Humanity was still young compared to the others, a race only just stepping beyond its home system. Some members believed humans were reckless and emotional. Others thought they carried too much potential to ignore. The debate was long, voices rising and falling like a storm across the chamber. Daniel sat quietly listening, answering when called, and never showing anger. He knew eyes were always on him. For humans, emotion was natural, but for most aliens it was considered weakness. He could not afford to let passion betray him. The session ended late. The aliens left in small groups, their robes sweeping across the marble floor. Daniel packed his notes slowly, aware that someone was still near. When he looked up, he found Lyra standing at the edge of the chamber. Her silver blue eyes rested on him, calm but curious. "You remain behind when others hurry," she said. Her voice carried the smooth tone of her people, but Daniel heard a question inside it. "Sometimes it helps to be the last to leave," Daniel replied, smiling gently. "You notice things the others don't." Lyra tilted her head. The Veyari were not used to smiles. They rarely expressed anything more than polite agreement. Yet something in Daniel's manner seemed to reach her. She stepped closer, her robe trailing faint light as it brushed the floor. "Human," she said softly. "I must ask you something." Daniel paused, sensing the weight in her words. "Of course," he said. Her eyes studied his face as though searching for an answer before she even spoke. Finally she asked, "Why do you find me so beautiful?" The question struck Daniel in a way he had not expected. No alien had ever asked him something so personal, so vulnerable. The council chamber, with all its tall pillars and glowing symbols, felt suddenly smaller, more intimate. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. He had looked at her many times, yes, perhaps too many. He had thought her presence was extraordinary, but he had never planned to confess it. He knew that to the Veyari, beauty was not spoken of in this way. For them it was defined by symmetry, rank, and status, never by the simple admiration of another. "Why do you ask me this?" Daniel said carefully, trying to understand. Lyra's eyes did not waver. "Because your gaze is not like theirs. The others look at me as a symbol, as the image of my people's pride. But you," her voice lowered, "you look at me as if I am more than that. I cannot explain it. I only feel it." For a moment, Daniel's heart raced. He knew she was right. From the first day, he had seen her not as a perfect figure of logic, but as someone alive, someone with thoughts and feelings behind the calm mask. And now she had noticed. He wanted to tell her everything, that he found her beauty not just in her form, but in her curiosity, her willingness to listen, her rare flashes of doubt that made her seem real. Yet he stopped himself. Words spoken too quickly could destroy fragile trust. Instead, he gave a gentle answer. "Lyra, sometimes humans see things differently. We notice small truths others overlook. I don't think I should explain yet. Not here." Her expression remained calm, but he thought he saw the smallest shift in her eyes, like a ripple across still water. She studied him in silence, as though weighing his reply. "Very well," she said at last. "But know this, I will ask you again, and when I do, I will not accept silence." With that, she turned and left the chamber, her robes catching the moonlight streaming through the tall windows. Daniel stood alone, his hands still resting on the polished table, his thoughts tumbling like a river in flood. The question had been asked. He knew it would not go away, and deep inside he felt both fear and wonder. Fear of breaking the careful walls between their worlds, and wonder at what might happen if he truly spoke the truth no one dared to say aloud. The following day passed in a blur for Daniel. The council met again, voices rising about trade routes, defense agreements, and Earth's future role among the stars. He gave careful answers, steady and professional, but his mind was not fully in the chamber. Lyra's question echoed in his thoughts. "Why do you find me so beautiful, human?" He had not expected such a moment, not from her. The Veyari were not known for curiosity about human emotions, yet she had looked directly into his eyes, demanding truth. He knew she would not let it rest. That evening, when the session finally ended, Daniel wandered outside the council hall. Illyria's night air was cooler, filled with the soft glow of floating lanterns that drifted like stars across the city's waterways. He walked slowly, trying to calm his restless thoughts. He heard footsteps behind him, smooth, deliberate, unmistakable. He turned and found Lyra approaching. Her silver blue eyes glowed faintly under the twin moons, and her robe shimmered with threads that caught the light. She stopped a few steps away. "You did not answer me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Yesterday I asked you why you find me beautiful. You spoke around the truth. Tonight you will speak it." Daniel breathed deeply. He knew this was not a moment to joke or hide. He had to choose his words carefully, but he also knew he could not deny her now. "Lyra," he began softly, "among humans, beauty is not only about appearance. Yes, you are graceful. Yes, your presence is striking. But that is not what I see." She tilted her head slightly. "Then what is it you see, Daniel?" He looked at her, at the calm mask she always wore, and the faint hidden flicker of something deeper in her eyes. "I see the way you listen when others argue. I see the questions in your gaze when you hear something new. You do not only repeat your people's rules. You wonder. You search. That is what makes you beautiful to me." For the first time, he saw her expression falter. It was not a collapse, not dramatic, but a small shift, a tightening of the lips, a slight widening of the eyes. The smallest sign that his words had pierced through the wall she lived behind. "My people do not speak of beauty in this way," she said after a pause. "For us, beauty is a measure, symmetry, strength, perfection, not curiosity, not wondering." Daniel stepped closer, careful not to break her space, but enough for his words to carry softly. "That is why I said it. Because I do not see you as a perfect statue. I see you as someone alive, someone more than duty." Her breath caught faintly, though her body remained composed. "Do you not fear speaking so freely, human?" "The council would call it weakness. They would laugh at your emotion." Daniel gave a small smile. "Perhaps, but humanity has always been told it was weak, too reckless, too emotional, and yet we have survived storms, wars, and struggles no one thought we could. Our strength comes from the very things others call weakness." Silence lingered between them. The moons rose higher, casting silver light over the balcony where they stood. The city below was alive with quiet movement, but up here it felt as if the world held its breath. Lyra lowered her gaze for the first time since Daniel had met her. "All my life I have been taught that feelings are dangerous. That to wonder, to doubt, to long for something more, these are shadows that weaken the mind. Yet when you speak, Daniel, it feels less like weakness and more like truth." Daniel's chest tightened. He had not expected her to reveal so much. He could sense the risk she took, even admitting such thoughts aloud. "Maybe that is why we are here," he said gently. "Humans bring something new, something the galaxy has forgotten. To us, beauty is not only in the face or form. It is in kindness, in honesty, and the courage to be different." Her eyes lifted again, catching his with sudden intensity. "Courage," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "To my people, courage is only in battle. But you speak of courage in words, in truth." "Yes," Daniel said simply, "because sometimes speaking the truth is harder than fighting any war." The weight of his words hung in the air. She looked at him for a long moment, her silver blue eyes reflecting the moons. At last she said quietly, "Then I begin to understand." She turned slightly, gazing over the city below. The drifting lanterns painted the waterways in soft trails of gold. "You are unlike any being I have met, Daniel. And perhaps that is why your people unsettle the council so deeply, not because of your weapons or your speed, but because you speak truths others fear." Daniel followed her gaze, his voice calm. Maybe the galaxy needed a reminder. Maybe beauty, courage, and truth have been buried under rules for too long. Lyra stood silently, her robe fluttering in the cool night breeze. He wondered what storm of thoughts moved within her calm face. Then she spoke again, her voice softer than before. "When I asked you my question, I thought you would give a simple answer. A human compliment, perhaps. I did not expect this. And now, Daniel, I cannot unhear it." Her words carried both weight and wonder. He knew she meant that his confession had planted a seed that would not disappear. It would grow slowly, breaking through the stone walls her people had built for centuries. Daniel placed a hand on the balcony rail, steadying himself. The truth often begins as a whisper, but once spoken it cannot be taken back. She turned to him once more. For a long time they stood in silence, the human and the alien under the twin moons. No council, no politics, no rules. Only two beings sharing a truth no one else dared to speak. At last, Lyra gave a small nod. "Tomorrow the council will hear my voice, and when they do, it may carry echoes of yours." Daniel's heart stirred. He knew her words meant change was coming. Change not just for her, but for her entire people. And as the moons rose higher, Daniel realized that what began as a single question was becoming something far greater. It was no longer about one man and one alien woman. It was about the galaxy remembering what it meant to truly see one another. The next morning, the council chamber felt heavier than usual. The high walls glowed faintly with symbols of each race, and the long silver table stretched like a river dividing the leaders. Daniel entered quietly, carrying his notes as always, but his heart carried more than paper. He knew something had changed last night on the balcony. The debates began as they always did, loud, sharp, and full of pride. One delegate argued Earth was reckless and should be watched closely. Another declared humans too emotional for leadership. A third suggested humans might be useful tools but never equals. Daniel listened, calm on the outside, though each word pressed against him like stones. Then the chamber grew still. Lyra rose from her seat. The room hushed at once, for the Veari rarely spoke more than necessary. When they did, their words carried weight like carved stone. She stood tall, her robe shimmering under the bright ceiling lights, and her silver blue eyes swept across the chamber. "I wish to speak," she said simply. Murmurs rippled through the council. Daniel sat straighter, watching closely. He remembered her promise from the night before. "Tomorrow the council will hear my voice. My people," Lyra began, her tone steady, "have long valued symmetry, order, and discipline. We measure beauty by perfection and worth by rank. But last night a truth was spoken to me, one that I cannot ignore." The chamber grew tense. Delegates shifted in their seats, uncertain. Daniel felt every eye turning, some already glancing at him. "Human Daniel told me," she continued, her voice clear, "that beauty is not only found in form or duty, it is found in kindness, in honesty, in the courage to question, to wonder, to see beyond rules." Gasps spread through the chamber. Some delegates looked shocked. Others scoffed openly. A few fell silent, their eyes fixed on her as though hearing words they had buried long ago. A council member from the Thaleri race, a tall being with translucent skin, leaned forward sharply. "You repeat the words of an emotional human? You risk lowering the dignity of the Veari." But Lyra did not flinch. "Perhaps dignity without truth is not strength at all," she answered calmly. "For too long we have silenced feelings, pretending they do not exist. Yet here stands a race, young, imperfect, reckless, that dares to speak aloud what we fear most. And I find their courage greater than our silence." The room erupted in noise. Some shouted in anger, others in surprise. Daniel sat still, letting the storm pass over him. He knew this was not his moment, it was hers. When the voices quieted, Lyra raised her head. "We look at humanity and call them dangerous. But what danger do they truly bring? That they see beauty where others do not? That they call weakness what we call strength? Or that they remind us of truths we chose to forget?" Her words echoed through the chamber, steady and unshaken. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had spoken only to her in a quiet moment under the moons. Yet now his words had taken flight, carried to every corner of the galaxy through her voice. One by one, other delegates began to speak. A winged representative from the Elari stood slowly. Perhaps the human is right. I too have wondered if our silence has cost us more than we admit. An elder from the Osari, their long tendrils swaying with each breath, murmured, "Once, our people sang songs of joy. Now we do not. Perhaps we were wrong to call such songs weakness." Not all agreed. Some shouted still, demanding the council dismiss such ideas. But something had shifted. A truth had been spoken, and like light through a crack it had begun to spread. At last, the High Speaker of the council called for order. His deep voice rolled across the chamber. "Enough! This matter is not of trade nor of war, but of spirit. Yet it seems humanity brings more than metal ships and machines. They bring questions that cut deeper. We will not dismiss this lightly." The session ended with no clear vote, but Daniel knew a seed had been planted, a seed that could not be buried again. As the chamber emptied, Lyra walked toward him. Her steps were calm, her expression unreadable, but her eyes shone with quiet strength. She stopped before him. "You see, Daniel," she said softly, "your truth was not just yours. It belonged to many. They only needed someone to speak it." Daniel smiled faintly. "It was your courage that carried it. I only whispered it to you. You gave it to the galaxy." For the first time since he had known her, Lyra's lips curved in something almost like a smile. It was small, fleeting, but real. "Perhaps," she said, "that is what makes your people dangerous. Not your weapons, not your speed, but your gift of seeing what others hide." They stepped out of the chamber together. The light of Illyria's twin moons poured across the high balcony once more. Below, the city shimmered, alive with drifting lanterns. Daniel looked out and felt something shift inside him. Hope not just for Earth, but for every race in the council. Because now, one alien voice had spoken a truth no one dared to before. And once truth is spoken, it cannot be unsaid. The galaxy would not change in a single day. Old walls do not fall so quickly. But something new had begun, a conversation, a crack in the silence, a bridge between species built not on fear, but on understanding. And it had started with a question. "Why do you find me so beautiful, human?"